Keely, back up.
What?
Check, see if it's back live again. That's what he was asking.
Mic is on.
Nothing showing up.
Nothing showing. Can't hear it either.
Let me take a bit. Take a bit.
Nope, that's still the old one, right?
That's the old one.
See, this is why pen and paper's better done.
How about now?
Nothing.
A lot of viewers and no sound.
I hear us.
Oh, I can hear it now.
Did it work?
We might have some chance at this.
I hear it.
All right.
Leave it to Doug's technology.
And I'm on the screen too, ain't I?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we got.
We got this. We're a couple ex-military people that just trying to figure stuff out. So
Yeah, but you're the tech guy.
that's right, and I'm faking it as we go.
Well, you can fake it. It's your
It's my
equipment.
show, damn it.
That's right. It's your show. You can fake it.
So what we're going to do, we're going to start over. What you missed was a incredibly awesome speech, campaign speech on the lines of Teddy Roosevelt, but you're all going to have to listen to the abbreviated version because I don't think you can do it again. But I'm Doug Fowler, and I'm with Nick Pappas, candidate for the sheriff of Pulaski County, Missouri. And Nick, I welcome you. I thank you for reaching out and wanting to come on the show and talk to the public and the voters. And why don't you go ahead and quickly, or abbreviate it, or however you feel like introducing yourself, like you did before, but nobody heard you.
Okay, round two.
It's right.
Round two, we'll cut it a little shorter. Nick Pappas, I'm retired out of the military here. Retired 2008 after 20 years, 6 months active service. You tack on the reserve, that was another 3. Retired as an agent in charge of the Fort Leonard Wood CID office. Was a contractor for a short term. Got tired of traveling. Didn't retire to spend most of my time on the road. That was for sure.
Yeah.
Then got into regular law enforcement. Everything from a line officer to detective, assistant chief, detective lieutenant with another agency. Still help a smaller agency here locally. I'm still an officer with a smaller agency here, and I just help them out trying to get grants fixed,
Sure.
evidence, that type of thing. Any complex investigations they have, that type of thing.
Grants.
Yeah, grants.
Oh, you got to go out and get money. We don't have enough taxpayer funds.
No. The small towns struggle.
Oh, sure.
You know, there's not the tax base, and they struggle with manpower and
Sure.
equipment. You know, so we can get into it, but a lot of people think it's cheap, and when you look at a single handheld radio that's $5,000,
Oh, I know
that'll dent a pocketbook of a small
it.
town.
Yeah,
so.
small. That'll blow your budget out of proportion real quick.
Yeah, definitely.
So what I have here, everybody, and hopefully you're still with us. I see 5 of you on Facebook, and I appreciate you being here. I've developed, with input from the voter community in Pulaski County, some input about 10 questions for Nick, and the goal here is to have similar but not the same questions for any other candidate for Pulaski County Sheriff or any other office in the county coming up for election 2024. So Nick he's the first one, so he's the first one on the show, and so what that means is they can't just listen to his answers and try to repeat and cheat if they do come on the show. So we're not going to allow that. That kind of horseplay just ain't going to be allowed. So, well, the first question I have for you, Nick, here, this is, how do you plan to enhance community policing initiatives within the county?
Well, here we go again for round two. Let's try this and hopefully it works. Community policing really is basically having officers assigned to a zone. You look at major metropolitan areas, you're talking beat cops, guys that actually walk the street, go to the stores, the businesses, talking to the community, and we're talking about people walking down the street. A little different here, you're spread out, you don't have that manpower, you may not have those budgetary constraints, but you can still have deputies assigned to a zone or a grid, however we break it down at that time, and they will go out and talk to the community and figure out what's going on. And I know several of the deputies now do that, but we're going to streamline that communication, get out there and let them make those bonds with those communities in that specific area, and then bring that information back. And then we can analyze it. Hey, what do we need to do better? What are the concerns of the general public? Are we addressing it and simply not communicating that to the public? A lot of it's sometimes perception based
Sure.
as well, but actually getting the deputies that fit with the community and having them out there, and that, oh, by the way, that includes the chain of command and the command
Sure.
staff. That would include myself and anybody below me. Getting out and talking to the people and going to the community events that they have down in Waynesville and in the cities and out in the county itself. By no means do I mean we're going to try and overrun, say, Waynesville PD
Sure,
or nothing.
sure.
It's just simply people coming from the county into the cities for these events, and we should be there and talk to them. But making sure the deputies are actually out there talking to them, and that includes the farthest reaches of our county, like outside that back gate, the Big Piney area, that type of thing. Getting them out there, getting them seen, getting them talking to the community and those concerns. Now, a lot of that information comes back, and it may be viable, and that's where we have to vet it, and vet those concerns. Not only that, if you go back and look at the studies, I believe one of them was like out of Canton, Ohio, if I remember correctly. They reduced crime rates by like almost 50% or greater,
Really?
depending on the type of crime, because the community was greatly involved in crime prevention, and that was that communication to us and then to law enforcement, and then being able to vet it and then take action on it as appropriate. But we got to be able to talk to the community, and then most importantly, we need to give that feedback back to the community, which at some point during this campaign I'll address that as well. But giving the feedback to the community, hey, you provided us this, and this is where it led to, or if we make a case, letting the community know that information is going somewhere and it's going where it needs to go and it's being handled accordingly. So
That's awesome. Now, how many zones are there? You said zones.
it depends on how we're going to break that down. That's it's really going to be based on manpower, how many people we can put on the road. A lot of people will say, well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, until we get into the budget, you go hands on.
Right.
We can sit here and spend whatever we want. Reality is, what's the budget going to dictate? How many people can I put on the road at one time? And how big do those zones or grids going to be?
I gotcha.
And then really focus on that. And that doesn't mean necessarily that deputy will be there every single day, but they will be out there on their shift. And then you got to remember, these guys are jumping. And if anybody is not familiar with the county, I work with them. They are dedicated and they are very busy. So
I bet.
But that little bit of time we get, we need to be talking to the public, and that's really what community policing is getting not just driving around waving. It's getting out and talking to them and mingling with them and seeing what their concerns are.
So if you have 25 zones, doesn't necessarily mean you have 25 deputies to go in those zones.
Not all at one time.
Not all at one time. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So this next question I have, what strategies do you propose for fostering positive relationships between law enforcement and diverse communities?
I think when you talk about the diverse communities, we're going to get into probably some transparency in there. You're going to talk again. Community policing will help a lot of that. But the diverse communities, whatever those communities may be within our area, and there's a lot of them, religious groups, your ethnic groups, your racial groups. If it takes me going to the churches and talking to them or whatever form they want to address those concerns, then that's what we're going to do. We're not just going to sit there and blow them off because we don't like something.
Sure.
Like your religion, when you come to law enforcement, this isn't, I'm a black guy, white guy. Hispanic, I'm Christian, I'm Baptist, or whatever. What is your issue, and is it something we need to handle legally? And we need to set any of those personal differences aside.
Sure.
This is not. It'd be beautiful if we could get politics out of law
Sure.
enforcement, but being able to talk to them, and really that comes back into your community policing as well. But talking to them and understanding what the concerns are, and taking that time and actually listening, not just hearing them, listening
Sure.
to what they got to say.
Absolutely, interaction and feedback.
Yes, especially the feedback.
Yeah, exactly. A mechanism also.
Yes, and
Next.
that will be in place.
Awesome. Next question, number 3. How would you address the issues of transparency and accountability? Again, obviously a little emphasis on transparency and accountability within the Sheriff's Department. This is from the crowd. This ain't from Doug Fowler.
I got you. So with transparency, a lot of that comes, I'm a firm believer, hey, you want to see our receipts? I want to, long-term goal, we're going to update our webpage. You know, I have no issue. I'll put the budget up there. I'll put our receipts up there. I'll put our call volume up there. I'll put it all out there for the public to see. There's some things that, you know, there may be case-related material and stuff, and that may not be able to get released right away. You know, there's legal
Sure.
aspects we have to look at. But everything else, the taxpayer pays for it. They have a right to know where their money's going. They have a right to know what's going on with our manpower and issues we're facing. And it's not, a lot of people there's a prior sheriff that put a lot of information out. And a lot of people say, well, it's whining. It's not whining. It's saying, hey, these are the issues we have, and this is why we're having them.
Right.
And so the public can understand, but hey, here's what we are attempting to do. And statistics is very important. You know, when you look at UCR, well, Meavers now, our crime reporting is really important. And a lot of people get worried about it. You know, oh, we want to hide the stats. No, you don't. Because the public has a right to know what's going on. So, you know, we'll upload those stats. Now, those will be for the county, our calls,
Sure.
not the other jurisdictions. We're talking for the county. And letting the people see that. And then if they got questions, I'm not just going to answer it to them. I'll put it out there so the whole world can
Right.
see, hey, here's the question, this is the issue, and this is what we're doing to address it. Or we may have to address it down the road. But all those things need to be out there. The public has a right to know where their money's going. They have a right to know, you know, hey, we're having manpower shortages, but it's hard to compete, you know,
Sure.
with another agency that's paying $20,000 more and top tiered in their retirement.
Right.
As an example, you know, it's really hard to compete sometimes, and manpower's another topic. But transparency is, we don't hide it; it'll be out there for people to see. And then if there's something I'm not addressing, bring it to me. If I can put it out there, I'll put it out there. No harm, no foul.
Okay. Awesome. Next question, number 4. Can you outline your approach to handling crises and emergencies such as natural disasters or civil unrest?
That would be a multi-tiered task. So first of all, it wouldn't just be the Sheriff's Department. This is where we need close coordination with our local emergency manager, you know, risk mitigation. And not only that, you know, what are the things we always have encounter? Well, we already know we get bad weather, right? Snow, ice. What equipment do we need beyond just vehicles to address that?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding our population base, you know, so during inclement weather, we tend to get a lot of check the well-beings. Everybody does, you know, where we go out and make sure the elderly's doing
Mhm.
okay, is there heat on, that type of thing. But we've got to do an assessment of our county, both geographical, you know, can we get around on the terrain? Do we need
Sure.
ATVs or whatever before everybody panics like I'm going to go out and buy new toys? There's other means to get it. But do we have the equipment to fill those gaps?
Sure.
And this is where that coordination with fire and everybody, you know, you're talking emergency management. If we spin up an EOC, Emergency Operations Center, you know, understanding our roles, this comes from assessments for the Sheriff's Department and the county needs-based, and then filling those gaps, and then making sure our personnel are trained in those areas as well. You know, if we needed a boat, hypothetically
Sure.
speaking,
Sure.
to get on the river, well, okay, fine, we can find a boat through, say, the LESO program where the military donates.
Mm-hmm.
That's all fine and dandy, but how many are certified to operate a boat? You know, swiftwater rescue, you know, safety, all that neat stuff. There's a lot that goes into it.
Sure.
Long story short, let's do an assessment. Let's see what gaps are out there for our agency based on the needs of the community, and let's start filling those gaps. And there will be, you know, there should be like tabletop
Oh,
exercises
sure.
and then, hands-on exercises, that type of thing, to address those and work out those kinks. But most importantly, I can sit here and tell you we're going to do all this. Bottom line is, if we don't train our deputies and make sure they got what they need, all that's going to go to the wayside.
Sure.
If we can't equip them and train them and make it safe, because we don't want to put a deputy out in a situation that they can't handle.
Sure.
We have a saying, arrive alive.
Right.
If we can't get them there, it's going to be a moot point. Now we're down a deputy and we're not helping the person that may be in need. So basically, let's do that assessment. Let's look at our equipment on hand. Let's look at the training needed, make sure we coordinate with our emergency manager and make sure we're addressing all those needs. The roundabout way is I could say, well, I'm going to go buy brand new high-end equipment to do search and rescues and all that. Well, that's all fine and dandy, except it's dressing. It's means nothing if we don't train our people in it.
Sure.
So a lot of coordination, training, and then making sure we're not just buying equipment.
Sure. Just to have equipment.
Just to have equipment. It looks cool.
Looks good in the driveway.
It looks good in the driveway. It looks good on our shop. We'll put fancy sheriff markings on it. Doesn't mean anything if we don't train our guys
That's
how
right.
to operate it safely. And we don't want to also overstep our bounds. If it's a fire issue, we're here to help.
Sure.
We're there to help. We don't want to be stepping in their lane. We don't want to be stepping on St. Robert's toes. We are here to fill gaps. If it's out in the county, it's ours. We need to make sure we can address that appropriately.
And likewise, they're probably here to fill gas when the sheriff needs help.
Oh yeah, and all the agencies do. It's every agency's shorthanded.
Sure.
You can go on and look. Everybody's hiring. It's a difficult field to work in today's national environment.
Oh, sure.
But did I answer it for you?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
Let the audience tell. I don't know.
Yeah.
How many we got? Did you see?
Are we looking at viewers? 30.
3? That's not bad. We'll usually hit the 500 mark when they start watching it.
Yeah.
So number 5, we'll get through.
Yeah, let's get through the questions.
Okay. What steps would you take to ensure a fair and unbiased treatment of all individuals by law enforcement under your leadership?
Oh, that's actually very basic. It's fair and impartial policing.
Yeah.
We don't ask anything, I don't care, if I roll up to you, so everybody knows I think we're all Republican candidates. I have to make sure, but I'm pretty sure we are. I'm not going to come up, hey, are you a Democrat? Are you
Right.
What church do you go to? It's a moot point. What is your issue? What do we need to do? And we're going to foster that through with the deputies. I've personally never seen it. I can't tell you if it happens or not.
Sure.
But that's the type of environment. The other big thing is making sure, again, that feedback. All too often you hear, and this happens to every agency, no matter how hard you try. Oh, well, they came out and didn't do anything. Well, maybe they did, we didn't give you the feedback. Or maybe there was nothing we can do, and you still didn't get that feedback. Again, so much lies on that communication. But the first thing is we shouldn't be looking at anything other than the community.
Correct.
What is the issue? It was a law broken. Is it law enforcement? Do we need to refer you to some other agency? Red Cross, whatever it may be. But we got to get past that, that boundary. The politics need to go away. Everything else needs to go away.
Yeah, the one sheriff's department in Pulaski County.
Yep, that's it.
And a whole bunch of not voters, but people living here.
And your transients.
Yeah.
We're not, you talked about diverse communities, excuse me, but, you're not, look at Fort Wood and all the different nations that come here to train in their communities, and you're talking a lot of different dialects and religions and cultures, and being able to understand that, and they do respond to it. So, you've got to kind of have that ability to bridge that gap. We're kind of unique having that military installation here, so.
Definitely.
Excuse me.
Let's say number 6. How would you plan to allocate resources to address both crime prevention and community outreach effectively?
The allocation of resources is really going to be through intelligence-led policing. In other words, it would be a dream to have so many deputies on that we could just saturate the county.
Sure.
Reality is, what our budget's around $1.5 million, give or take. So the intelligence-led policing, you gather that information, you analyze it, and then you put the deputies where they need to be and give them the resource to do it. I can sit there and tell you I'm going to put 20 deputies in a zone or in an area. It doesn't matter if they're not trained to detect dope and what to look for. It doesn't matter if they're not equipped. Again, we're going to go back to training the deputies and making sure they know what to look for. Good communication, between shifts lead to that. Most importantly, when we get the information from the community, because let's face it, that's where it comes from a lot of the times, not just passing it off. In other words, it goes to a shredder.
Sure.
We need to make sure we capture it. Is it valid? Vet it. If not, it may add to something else or build into something. But a lot of it will be intelligence-led policing for a while until we get things lined out as well.
Okay. This one's key to me. This is my own question.
I knew there'd be one.
What measures would you implement to enhance professional development and training of your deputies?
So every year, all deputies, all law enforcement in the state of Missouri require certain training.
Sure.
You can't get around it. They have to have a certain amount of training in certain areas. But one of the things is when you look at deputies, it starts from not just from the academy, but when you bring them in and you're going to go through the hiring process, ask them where do they want to be in 5 years, right? You don't always have the ability to pay top pay, but if you give them that growth, a career path. So every position has a job description, and to get to that position, there should be a career path. But going back to the needs of the community, so do we need a canine unit? Well, let's just face it, there's a drug issue in the county. Let's not beat around the bush about it. Could we use a canine? Yeah. So what deputy would really wants to do this? And I'm using this as an example.
Sure.
What deputy really wants to be a canine, and would it fit the needs of community? Then let's figure out a way to make that happen. If the deputy earns it, first of all, they need to earn that spot, not just because they want it. But let them earn it, get them the training, get it equipped, because everybody thinks, well, we're just going to get a dog. No, first of all, you got to be certified. The dog has to be certified. Then you got to outfit a vehicle. There's maintenance of the vehicle. There's maintenance of the canine, vet bills, all that neat stuff. But again, based on the needs of the community, then we figure out where the deputies want to go and give them a career path.
Sure.
Not just a couple. Everybody wants to grow.
Sure.
So let's look at the deputies. Say, hey, where do you want to be? And I use the term 5 years.
Sure.
But we can go 4 years. Excuse me. Go 4 years. Where do you want to be in that 4 years? What do you want to do in your career? Do you want to go to college? What is it you want? And then as a department, let's see what we can do. And we're focusing a lot on deputies, which, why? Because, well, they're the ones out in the public. But you got a whole jail staff. Right? We need to make sure they're trained to do their jobs from the bottom up. You got admin staff, you got paper, you got a whole crew of people that run that building and that agency. And we need to make sure all of them are trained.
Right. And
have a career path that they can follow. Not everybody just wants to, run traffic their whole career. Because let's face it, you get up, traffic gets a little hairy.
Sure.
And I don't mean writing tickets. Officers are killed almost every month doing traffic stops, albeit domestics are your most violent and present the most danger. But give them that career path and actually have them outline where do you want to be in that 5 years.
A conversation.
Yeah. And help build them. You build them professionally and personally. Make sure they have time off for them and the families, and they're building themselves. And I'll use detectives because I've done investigations for so long.
Sure.
But a lot of guys want to be detective. Everybody loves to be a detective until they got to do the paperwork. So, but what are they? Do they want to specialize? Right? There's a myriad of issues. They have cyber crimes. They have fraud. They have drugs. There's a whole slew. Do they want to specialize in an area?
Right.
Let's address it. Let's get them that training if we can. Now remember, this is long term. You're talking. There's budget. Training is not free.
Right.
But it can be done when we can get it and make it happen. It will just have to be done in chunks.
Sure.
So But I'd like to see that for and I don't mean just the road deputies. I'm
Mhm.
talking everybody that works there. Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Sure.
And some of those people down there have been up there a hot minute. So
Yeah.
you're talking, 10 years plus.
Right.
I know at least a few that are still there. So where do they really want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other aspect. And the other side, flip side of that, and this is near and dear to me as well, because I see it a lot, happens in small towns. You can't help it. It's the nature of the beast. But agencies have a great tendency to sometimes overtask their people.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, a deputy may not want to be in charge of maintenance of vehicles, or they may not want to be in charge of equipment or whatever. And what happens is, so we start tasking these guys, because there's so much there's a lot of administrative and behind the scenes that occur. We start tasking, and next thing you know, so Doug, you're a patrol deputy. Well, now I'm going to task you with getting a vehicle fixed, and I'm going to task you with this. Guess what? Every time I task you with something like that, or the command staff task you, we now are pulling you away from the road, and that's what you're paid to do.
Right.
So we're going to look at all the administrative duties. We're going to pull them in. We're going to see who's doing what, and try and alleviate some of that pressure off these guys, so they can focus on the road and also their professional
Sure.
development. It's not really fair to them to sit there and have to do a lot of admin stuff when, be quite honest, they're paid to work the road.
Sure.
Or answer calls or whatever their duty is at the time.
Minimize administrative work.
Absolutely.
Okay. Number 7. What measures would you implement? Oh, well, I already got that one. Sorry. Number 8. How do you envision collaborating with other local agencies and community organizations to address broader public safety issues?
So with the surrounding agencies, I'd like to see the command staff come back and start doing the monthly meetings again.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we can talk, and those are usually more legislative,
Mm-hmm.
Or legal issues that we're facing. It could be manpower, it could be any number of things. But most importantly, make sure the agencies, your detective division or whatever, each agency sits down and shares that information. Not only that, that prevents us from stepping on toes. So if I'm working a small town, which I do, and let's say I make a drug case, well, I may run it all the way through, and this guy may, I may be interfering with another agency's case and not know it.
Right.
So you've got to make that coordination, whether it be monthly or quarterly, that will be worked out, and that is something to be addressed, something on the hit list, if you will. But the term is deconflict. You want to
Sure.
make sure you're not interfering in somebody else's case. But the meeting with all the chiefs, assistant chiefs, pipe ring would be monthly. I don't know if we could squeak that out,
Right.
but at least quarterly, sit down. Hey, what are issues? What are my guys doing? What are your guys doing? What issues are we having that we need to address as a command? And I don't think that will be an issue.
Okay. Number 9. Can you discuss your stance on implementing and supporting mental health programs for both law enforcement officers? This is a good question. Law enforcement officers and the community.
Okay, so for law enforcement officers, there's new laws that come out that say you got to get a psych eval every a mental health eval
Mhm.
every so often. But after a critical incident, a debrief,
Mm-hmm.
through a counselor or whoever, is actually pretty much standard practice. You go to a traumatic scene, a double homicide, even a homicide. To be quite honest, I've seen enough dead bodies in my lifetime to last probably anybody. But we all handle that differently.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make an officer or deputy weak just because they're going to talk to somebody, right? It's just to make sure, hey, they got a neutral voice to sound to, and it will be implemented. It'll be a requirement, even if it's a few minutes to make sure. But most importantly, we're both retired military, so you remember the old Army days where if you went and saw a shrink, you were weak.
Sure.
I could,
Yeah.
that bravado
Just
type.
looking for a profile.
Yeah. So we don't want to, be that way. Hey, look, you got issues. You're getting stressed. Let's deal with it. Get you back to 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're stressed, if you're having issues with that, you can be a risk to yourself on the road. You know, you can't focus, and I say on the road because
Sure.
you know the ones out in the public. But and then with the community, there's actually certain sheriff's departments across the nation that have basically gone and let the mental health field. So you know, you go to somebody that's having a mental health crisis. Is that really a law enforcement function?
Right.
Think about it.
Right.
No crime's been committed. Excuse me, but it's not a crime. And let's face it, what usually happens when somebody shows up in uniform? A lot of times they're trained. You know, they go through CIT how to deal with people in mental health crisis.
Sure.
But I think that's where when we partner, and there is good working relationships with almost all the mental health agencies around here, making sure that we get whoever that is to the people that can actually help them.
Sure.
You know, we're not mental health professionals. We can kind of calm the situation, but get them there and we back away. You know, we don't want them hurting themselves, but we're also not counselors. So making sure the deputies get their help when they need it, and then making sure we can get the public the help when they need it. And that'll be a gap that's going to have to get filled.
Sure.
It's there, but I can tell you personally, being an officer in this county, you still have somebody that's in crisis. It could be an addiction, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's face it, the health organizations here are busy.
Sure.
So what happens at that point of contact? Well, we refer them, but we may not get them that help right at that time. And that's the most critical.
Yeah.
So that's something we're going to have to look at.
Okay.
Point of contact. Can we get them the help right then and there? And what do we do from that point?
Close the loop.
Yep.
Okay.
Get it closed.
Awesome. Thank you. Last question. You made it to the end without passing out.
Yeah,
Good thing you didn't have to hold your breath.
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
How would you engage with the public to gather feedback and address concerns about law enforcement practices within the county? That was from the public. I'm not aware of any concerns, but you may have better hand.
I would say really a former sheriff, actually a couple actually had the town hall meetings. I've actually discussed this with some others. That is something I would bring back. It doesn't matter if one person shows up or 50. We're there for the public. I'm there for the public. So the town hall meetings are starting. You need me to come and talk to a church group at a dinner or something. That's where we can address it. And again, I'd rather do that and be able to address it, figure out what's going on, than not know, and then they're like, well, this is going on and we know nothing
Sure.
about it. But you use the term closing that loop, and that's real important. So, hey, look, not just say, okay, we got it, we'll address it, but actually address it and come back and say, we address it and this is what we're doing to fix those gaps. Or, bringing the deputies or whoever it is in and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the deputies can explain what action they took. I wasn't there.
Sure.
And my perception is not your perception, and it's maybe not the public's perception. So going from the ground up, the communication is really key. Period, bottom line, it doesn't matter, but that feedback to the community or that section of the community is what's going to be real critical as well. So, town hall meetings, they want to have a luncheon or whatever.
Have a technology brief.
Yeah. And again, those are the issues, hey, we would word it generically, but hey, this concern was brought by the community.
Sure.
That would go up on our webpage, and this is what we did, address it, or it was a perception, and this is really how this is transpiring. So
And I understood there's always things you can't discuss in the public, just like
some things. I mean, but a lot of what we got going on is, you mentioned transparency. And I think that's what's really key, and that feedback. But
that's awesome. Well, that's the last question. So right now I'm going to open up the lines. I got to slide a dial. See that one says Bluetooth? You know what Bluetooth symbol?
no,
Second to the right, that one right there. Slide it up all the way.
all the way up.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, look, if that thing breaks, that is on
Well, that's
you.
your fault. So
No.
if you feel like calling in, area code 573-408-0339. If you have any questions for Nick or want some input, feel free to give us a ring. And
How can we tell? Will it pop up on the screen or on
it'll
your
pop
phone?
on the screen, and actually we'll hear it through the microphone and such. So
Right. There was something else you were talking about earlier too. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. After the whole glitch with the technology, I kind of forgot. But
And I'm using an Android, so that's really throwing me for a loop. I'm an Apple guy, so doesn't look like we have any questions. So
awesome.
if you have any questions, put them on the Facebook page. Nick's got his campaign page up. Field it to him, call him directly, or text it to this number. I'm going to turn it back off in about an hour. But thank you, Nick, for coming on board.
I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll do it again down the road.
Absolutely. Like if you want, I'm expecting or anticipating. I'm going to post these questions online if people want to expand on these subjects and stuff like that.
Feel free to do it.
Awesome. We'll bring you back in. We'll do some more.
That sounds good. I appreciate you, Doug.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody until next time. Adios and Auf Wiedersehen.
And hopefully the technology.
Yeah, that's
will work.
right. We shut that off of me here, so at least I got the video I can post. Next time.